Welcome, Frank. I would love for you, before we dive into this portal today, to introduce yourself and just share who you are and what you're up to in the world.
Hi, Holly. Thank you for this beautiful invitation to be on your podcast. Who am I in the world? That's a good question. One line that I've summarized myself with is a contemporary voice for love, Eros, and relating. And so that's the part of myself that has really journeyed and had some experiences and is coming through with I would say, a unique or echoed or amplified expression of love in the world. And so I love that perspective. Who else am I? I am a facilitator, shamanic minister. I facilitate ISTA, International School of Temple Arts. I work with Venus Rising Association for Transformation as well, which is a shamanic breathwork school. And I am a trailblazer and a pioneer, and I'm just creating some new paths for myself in this next phase of my life.
I love it. I love it. I really love this contemporary visionary for love, Eros, and relationships. And when you say that, I'm just like, wow, what simultaneously, what a brave and pleasurable path to pioneer and be visionary on. And so have you always felt that in your body and your being, that you're here to really see love and relationships and Eros differently, or did this sort of come to you at a certain point in your journey?
From a young age, I always saw myself being curious and not traditional, and so an explorer. And I also came from a family with difficulty around, and the themes were love, relating, and sexuality. And so a part of the curious side of my innocent boy was out there, always like playing with this field until, I got in my 20s or so, and I fell in the loop of the matrix and got married young at 23 and did the whole marriage and commitment thing, which was very powerful. Like, I learned so much in those years. And then after that divorce, um, reintegration into being in the world, a new world of, everybody knows this story, coming back into relating and noticing a lot of things not working for me, few relational breakdowns which were very painful. And then clear decision in 2018, after a difficult year, I decided that I will be meeting relationship from a new perspective, a perspective that really truly links to love. And then I had to ask myself if that was my definition and how I want to meet relationships moment to moment. Then I had to define to myself, like, well, what is love? And that opened this whole path.
What is love? Baby, don't
Baby, love me.
know. How do I had it right all these years asking the right question?
Exactly.
Yeah. So from what it sounds like you're sharing, you had a very traditional way of loving and relating before, and sort of the matrix, and married young. And then you had this breakdown, and it allowed you to really question,
Breakthrough. Yeah.
break through of like, who are you now and how do you want to love? And this piece of, you want your relationships to stem from true love. So in this process of defining that for yourself, what is that love for you now when you share it and receive it from the world?
Yeah, so first piece is, for me, my experience of love is a generous act. It has to come from me and go outward in the world. So that is what I'm concerned with. It's like, how do I source myself, feel resource, so I could be overflowing in this energy, which is more of a state. So through meditation, through self-care, through all these places, through great relationships, you can resource yourself, and then from there you're in the overflow, and then you could bless people. You could bless people with your presence. You could bless people breast people, bless
Yeah,
people. Well, that's what it is. It's, you know, it's the feminine, it's the
yeah, it's
the
together.
breasts that are overflowing in love and the energy
Totally.
outward going. So yeah, it was a question of recognizing that in my relationships, if I'm going to be in a relationship with somebody I say I care about and that I love, then I have to be concerned about how am I meeting that relationship and what I bringing to the table versus like being preoccupied with getting.
Mm,
So for me, the energy of like, I want to get love, or please give me love, or you're not loving me the way I need to be loved. To me, all of that is not love. None of
mm,
that is love.
mhm,
So that's like neediness, insecurity, fear, it's lack, it's scarcity, and it's not being in relationship to actually bless another.
mhm,
So that's number one. Number two, when I came into the piece of like, what is relational love? Because it's different. You could have personal love, self-love, which has one importance. You could have universal love, which is love from source that has its own purpose. And then it's like, okay, what we want to know as humans is like, how do we get along? And how do I find the best relationship in my life? So it's like, what is relational love? So I started to think back of like, when was the place where I was most generous, without attachment, only truly caring about my beloved's expansion? And so
mhm,
that was the first thing. It's like, oh, if I'm in somebody's life, I'm in their life to either witness, participate, or contribute to their expansion. That's why I've chose a woman. That's why I chose a partner. I chose a partner because they inspire me so much that I want to be on this life journey with them. And the only role I want to have in their life is being somebody that fluffs them, is wind in their sails.
mm, mm, mm,
So I said, what does that look like? I broke that down further. Like, get more clear, Frank, get more clear. And so what it came down to was, for me, I make reference to a moment like 3 months into a relationship, maybe 6 months, 8 months, whatever it is, first 9 months. When you're relating with that person and you're seeing them, especially when you don't know them very well, but you're, falling for them, it's like whatever's best for you. I want the best. You want to save America, save America. You want to save Ray France, same Ray. You want to be a shaman, be a shaman. Whatever you want to do, I'm in your court. So I'm like, what is that? To me, that's like supporting. So it's like, I support you to go towards your sunshine, to
mm,
be in your radiance. Number two, if I'm lucky or if you need it, I can contribute to it. So that is active participation in supporting someone's endeavor, project, evolution, whatever it is. And third, and probably one of the most important, is celebration. It's
mm.
celebrating, to be able to sit in the celebration of your partner's expansion. And why I name that as important is because oftentimes our partner's expansions can be a moment of great insecurity for us, because it's the question will always be, did they grow beyond me now?
Right.
And so that's where the hooks of relational dynamics come in play, where there's breakdown and whatnot. So for me, it was very those three things, and it's not all three all the time. It could be one, it could be all, it could be two. It doesn't matter, but that there's that essence coming in, and I meet every situation in my relationships now from that point. And when I can't meet it, then I start asking my question: what's going on beyond that? Like, what's happening here? Is that there's fear here, there's insecurity, there's grasping, there's a need for control, there's hurt, there's doubt. So instead of like looking outward, I could go inward, find that peace, and then bring it to the table as accurately as one can when they're processing their shit, right?
Yes. So when those pieces are showing up for you, like you mentioned, doubt, insecurity, fear, contraction, it's actually preventing you from supporting, contributing, and celebrating to that person, because you're in your
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
And you're not overflowing, you're not able to bless in that moment.
Right,
So when
right.
you're in that contraction and you're away from your like three pillars of overflowing in love,
Yeah.
what do you do? Like, how do you navigate that when you're in that contracted state?
Beautiful question. For me, it starts with introspection. It's like, what's alive here? Like, if I could get beyond, it's like I'm here as a facilitator, a 10 years experience, whatever, whatever. And I am still in my humanity. I am still in my wounds and pieces that, make me feel small. So one's work is never done, basically. And so for me, it always starts with introspection. And if I'm able to get through the stories that are creating the selection, the provocations, the distortions, if I could get through that, then I could start to get into the place of self-responsibility. Okay, there's a breakdown here. Where did I contribute to the breakdown? What's going on? So I go into self-responsibility. If I'm stuck, then I'll go, okay, where's the fear, the insecurity? So I start to look at those pieces, and when I identify them, then it depends what it is. It's like I need to rant. Somebody needs to listen. I need to take alone time and be in self-contemplation and maybe personal forgiveness or affirmations. And then there's other times, emotional release, the drill, the whole storyline. But it's also coming to the place, ultimately, another pillar of this limitless love, or love without limit, as I call it. The first version of love that we need to be anchored is the self-love piece. And the self-love piece only exists when we give ourselves the self-care, and we give ourselves the time to resource,
Yeah.
because we need to be in the overflow. And so what that demonstrates to me is that there is a lack of love for myself. And then that brings me to the third source of love, which is the universal love. So there's the self-love in terms of self-care, getting the support, getting tribe, network, whatever it is. And then it's the other piece about being with self and coming back into resourcing with oneself. And from that place, coming back to the situation with a greater understanding of where we were in the situation, the variables that affected us for us to be in the contraction, what we learned from the contraction, how we can, owning those pieces so that it's in the consciousness and we could be present with them. And so that our partner could feel that, oh, he is in love. It was a difficult time, and so on. So yeah, that's how I deal with it, more or less, when I'm going through my own moments of self-doubt and relationship, whatever it is. Oh, and ultimately, it's about choice and boundaries and values.
Yeah.
So it's like in every situation is, where's the breakdown coming from? Is it a value piece? Is it a deception piece? Is it a misunderstanding piece?
Mm.
So many variables.
Yes, but even just having those few categories of like, is it boundaries? Is it values? Is it a misunderstanding? Even having that framework is helpful, because sometimes it's clear that something's out of alignment, but it's hard to really pinpoint it. So even
And, and
having that.
so where we leak power, which is another passionate topic for me, is when we give away our choice. So oftentimes it's like we're in a relationship, we feel like, oh my God, but we don't want it to end. So like we have no choice. So we sacrifice our own personal values, we sacrifice our boundaries, we make accommodations, we, compromise or whatever it is, and we continue leaning in. But ultimately, if we were true with our value system, our boundaries, whatever, we might say that this situation, this moment, this relationship is no longer working. And so I have to make the very difficult and very self-loving choice, which is, I am complete for now, or I need to take an exhalation from this relationship, also known as a break, which I don't like because it's a curse on words. So an exhalation, or it's like we need to evolve this relationship into something else. But we like to, that saying, have our cake and eat it too, obviously. But but in relationship, it doesn't work like that. You can't be fully in self-love, self-respect, dignity, and following your North Star personally as a sovereign being, and sacrificing and compromising to a relationship that is, questionable in terms of your values and your boundaries. And the most difficult decision is choice. And so for me, that is actually where power resides, in choice.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And it's like rewriting the script, right? Because as you're sharing this, I'm like, there's so much conditioning in society that love equals sacrificing yourself for another person. Love equals, being, uncompromised. Like there's so much around what love means in society today,
Well,
right?
specifically on that point, let's quickly touch on that. We're also exiting the age of Pisces and entering into the age of Aquarius. This is a very important shift in our time. So we got to recognize that there's cultural aspects that are ancestral in our being, epigenetics. Science proves it now that it's in our being.
It's dissolving the conditioning, right? Instead of the romance of like, I would die for you. I would take a bullet for you. That's how much I love you.
So there's this whole rewriting, and we were talking about the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius. And the age of Pisces, through epigenetics and culture, what we get is a story, a myth that says that for one to prove their love, they must sacrifice themselves for the collective, and so that's the Jesus myth. That's the Jesus story. It's for salvation, one must suffer. And that's an old story.
Right.
And so now we're entering into this new story, which we are in the nose beginning of it. We're just feeling this cultural energy coming on. We're like the trailblazers. And so what this energy is calling forth for more is a recognition that we must go beyond individuality and offer our individuality to a greater circle, a greater collective, and from a overflowing heart that is held by the circle and whatnot, then we can serve the center heart of community. And that center heart of community is much more than one's individual's needs, but a collective field. And the love that I am exploring in my radical self-expression, adventurous explorer version of myself is one that doesn't put limits coming from a cultural perspective on containers of relationships, and allowing those relationships to emerge like a budding flower or a tulip, or we don't know what it is until it pops through the soil and it buds and it blossoms. So for me, my relationships, whether they're friendships or something more intimate or something with longevity and commitment and they each have to have their time to show themselves of what they are, so then we could learn how to care for this relationship specifically and have it as a standalone independent being from everything else that exists in my life, including my relationship with my brothers, including my relationship with my family, including my relationship with my pets, my vehicles, motorcycles, and so on and so forth. So it's like, this is the love, the limitless love that I'm talking about, is that acknowledging that every relationship is love wanting to manifest itself. And culturally, we have put a lot of structure and condition on what that looks like for really pragmatic reasons, like old school wanting to know who you're going to give your inheritance to make sure that it's your child and not some other person's child. Land ownership, there was purpose for this. But now it's different. Now we have to go beyond this piece. And then you have the whole 80s, 90s, 2000s, where women have appropriated this control that men had over women and pregnancy rights in regards to why we have monogamous exclusive relationships. And in the 90s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, it's appropriated by the women movement from the perspective of, this is the way I'm going to control my man. He lives within this box and these conditions. And maybe that's a bit controversial to say, but that was the very traditional aspects of this last generation. And so what I'm saying is I don't subscribe to either of those two. First of all, I got a vasectomy, don't want children, don't need to know who the heirs of my wealth is. From the other perspective, I have come into the awareness that I am my own person. I am a sovereign being with a sacred purpose and a North Star that's moving towards that, which is very important for people in their life to have a North Star, to go towards something that is fulfilling to them beyond necessarily another person. Because what we do is we put all our eggs in the basket of this other person. Because if this other person is in my life, then somehow my life is more comfortable, more safe, more secure, and whatnot. And then we hook on that safety and security and comfort and lose the freshness of the love, because now it is an agreement and a contract versus experiencing the freshness of day-to-day gardening, of loving, of the aroma of love that exists solely in each relationship with each flower, which is the relationship.
Really love how you weave in, Frank, the metaphors of nature, because I feel like that's what's happening, right? It's like if we align to nature, we're automatically aligning to truth, automatically, right? Because nature is truth. And so what you had said about like we plant a seed, we don't know if it's going to be a rose or a tulip, and we're not projecting onto it like you must be a rose, and then it comes out a tulip. We're like, you're being such a bad rose, damn you.
Exactly.
And pulling away from the majesty of what it wants to be and the fragrance that it came here to emit. And so this is really like just I'm really vibing with what you're sharing here, of like aligning with the Tao, aligning with nature, aligning with Eros, right? Like, so it's not stagnant, so it's alive, so it's fresh. But that takes trust, right? It takes, because you're kind of stepping into the void, the mystery, when you step into that space.
Yeah. And like for me, it's a lot of what I'm speaking on is visionary and experimental, and I my life is proof of a lot of things in my own experience. But it is experimental, and it is not necessarily for everybody. And ultimately, what is but what I would put as a disclaimer is watch out what is you, because that's the fear that is running you and maintaining you in this box. People say like, oh no, I get it that it makes sense for you, this bigger love, but I'm different. For me, there's just this. And I'm like, yes, okay, cool. That could be you. And the disclaimer is make sure that you're not hiding from the truth of yourself or the lack of love or self-love and making that the storyline, because ultimately we cannot avoid pain. Because when we don't do our work, when we come from shadow, when we are trying to manipulate the outcomes, when ultimately there is a day when this is part of shamanism and the spiral path, you will meet the harvest of what you've planted. And when it's not coming from an authentic love, there will be breakdown and pain. And even when there is coming from authentic and love, there's sometimes misunderstandings and breakdown and pain. So pain is inevitable. So let's stop trying to like, oh, I need this because this is going to keep me the safest and I won't experience pain. False. Pain is inevitable. Yeah, but monogamy is more safe because it's one person, and the chance of them cheating is less. And with poly, I'll get left because the next person is going to come in, and that's going to distract them. False. You'll be as easily cheated by a man who in a monogamous relationship, if the time and circumstance is right, as the threat of another person coming in and allowing the love of that relationship to be fresh and current and in consciousness. So for me, ultimately, I have multiple relationships with multiple women. Since 2018, when I chose that I'm going to change the way I meet relationships, I've had long-lasting relationships.
What I would love to hear you share is, because it's like that conditioning for people. They're trying to find safety. They're like, which fortress is going to keep me the safest? And what I would love society to do is to ask instead, what's going to make me feel the most alive, right? What brings the most aliveness? So what I'd love for you to share is, since you've shifted to this way of loving and this way of being, how has your life changed? Like, how has this aliveness, this currency, this pulse transformed you?
Yeah, the aliveness has completely made my life worth living, kind of thing. When you're an awakened soul and you're in a very sick culture, it can be very lonely and disheartening. Or if you're like a soul that's not awakened but knows that there's more than this, it's like it could be completely disheartening. And so and then especially when you hook all your love and resolve on another person and they don't show up exactly the way you needed them to show up, then it creates this pain. But when we come from this limitless love, for me, it has made my life a lot more alive. It has made my life a lot more current, moment to moment, present moment awareness, available, prioritizing. So availability. So the piece is that I have more love in my life than I've ever had before. It is mostly like securely attached, and I would say securely attached, non-attached, in that all my lovers are independent, sovereign beings that I get the joy and pleasure of being on a co-journey with them for a certain amount of time. Ideally, it would be for the rest of our lives if that is what's meant. But I'm not attached to that storyline as well, knowing that things shift and change. And so I have multiple people which I enjoy beautiful journeys with in this lifetime. We get to share beautiful experiences, beautiful moments, knowing that we are not the end all, be all source of each other's life, because there's each other's sacred purposes, there's each other's current relationship, there's our relationships with other people. I don't want to be the source of one person's everything. I can't do it. Failed. I failed the admissions test off the bat. Don't want it.
Yeah, it's so like it's like in someone's basket, right? And they're putting all their eggs in it. It's like that's like also a lot of responsibility and pressure to be carrying the entirety of someone's eggs in your basket, right?
And so the other key for me that works well is that I don't go. So if I meet somebody and I'm interested in them, and I'm like, wow, this person really has caught my attention. There's great energy here. I'm not like, okay, then 3-5 dates down the line saying, oh, maybe this is the one. Maybe this is the one that I'm going to start dating. And you know, that's already future projecting, losing the present moment, being in something that completely doesn't exist, projecting on an individual what you think they are that they absolutely are not, because you don't know who the fuck they are. And so for me, it's like I take a lot of intention and sacredness. I put a lot of intention and sacredness in the growth, the development of seeing what we're dealing with here. So I could be seeing somebody for 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. Still, I'm still in the discovery of what this thing is. It's only after 2 years of being in a, and you know, it's not about time, but in my experience, the marker has been after around 2 years, there is a reevaluation of this relationship and says, where is this going? Like we've seen each other. Yeah, and we know who we are more. We've seen each other in challenges. You showed me your true face. My projections were shattered, and now I get to know the real you, and so on and so forth. So for me, this is only available in my personal, humble experience after a certain amount of time together. And this is why most of my relationships last long. Like I was in 2 5-year relationships. One is coming to completion. The other one is still alive. I have 2 other 2-year relationships. And these relationships happen because they're cultivated. They're cultivated. Energy is put into them. Time is put into them. Commitment to the relating is put into it. It's like people say, you can't be poly and committed. And it's like, well, then you haven't been loved in a way that is loving and considerate and caring. Because, and that's the other piece that I was trying to say before that got all mangled, is that the other concern is like, we're all very young in this. So people are going to make mistakes, and not everybody is as good as it at it as other people. And not everybody's coming into it with the true intention of love. Some people are coming into avoidance. Some people are coming from lack and needing to. This is not polyamory. For polyamory, at the core of it, we need love. And what is love? Love is a generous energy that supports, contributes, and celebrates the expansion of the beloved, offers choice. For me, like, there's no place for deception. Deception only exists when you're trying to manage a situation for you to be okay with it and not have to deal with a difficult situation. For me, one of my highest values of love is you have to give your partner choice. And that means giving them information that sometimes you rather not, because it actually might risk the relationship's health. And I'm like, yes, that.
Yes.
And if you don't give me that, I don't want this relationship.
Yes. 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 That's so disempowering to not give your partner the opportunity to choose how they want to navigate that information, to decide for them based on how you think they might react, versus bringing all your truth to the table and allowing everyone to choose from that space. Yeah.
And so for me, I'm radically honest and transparent. And the reason for that is because whoever is going to be around me and navigate around me, they're going to know exactly what I am, who I am, and how I love. And they're going to choose to be here. So I'm not convincing anybody. I'm not trying to make somebody fit into my, whatever. It's like, this love is open and it's caring and it's considerate, and we need to see what it is. And one thing leads to another, leads to another. So it's less about, oh, we're in a relationship, give me the title and the qualities of our relationship, and more like, let's be in relating. The relating period for me is 2 years. I need 2 years to find out who am I relating with, so then I could cross a threshold into this person being a deeper intimate, I would call a beloved. And a beloved is the closest thing to a traditional girlfriend that I would put. But there could be one, there could be three. It doesn't matter. And then all my other relationships, I meet them from what is authentic. Oh, we're great friends. We have great, chemistry. We know we're not going to be in a relationship with each other because our needs are different or what's available is not matching. But we love each other. And if we have the chance to cross paths and share love, whatever that looks like, then that might happen as well.
Yes, I love that. And the beloved, like when you sort of cross that 2-year threshold and go into the beloved space, the vision that I'm getting there is like the roots have been formed, right? Like the depth and the truth of who that person is, of who you are and what the relationship is, has bloomed. And so you can see it for what it actually is in that space and decide if it's something you want to keep on harvesting and cultivating from.
And ultimately, from a security perspective, it's like these people are not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's like there's no new woman that's going to dislodge my beloved of 5 years it's that, the only dislodging we'll do is us with us, when we realize we are no longer blessing each other and putting wind in each other's sails, and actually starting to detract and create pain and create suffering. And you stay in, you unpack, you're in it, but when you start to see the pieces no longer fit, then it's time for transition or evolution of that relationship. And so that person is still going to be in my life, it just looks different. So like the big fear that people have is like, you're going to meet somebody and they're going to be better than or you're going to think they're better than me and I'm going to lose my space. Nobody could take away the space of me and my best friend. Me and my best friend is always going to be me and my best friend. Right? So why? Because there's sexual component in it, or like deeper intimacy or deeper vulnerability. Should that be threatened? It's even less threatenable. Because we have the anchors, we have the roots.
Through the initiations, the ego deaths, the triggers, the repair. You've been through all of that, which is...
the truth of the quality of love. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing can compare to that. It sort of reminds me of like the vision that's coming through to me is like, we've got our rooted gardens that we've cultivated, and then we have the person that comes by with bouquets, right? And we take the bouquet and we put it in the vase and we have it on our nightstand, and it's beautiful, but it's not the garden. It's not the garden that you've cultivated, right? It doesn't have the roots. Yeah. You're a gardener of love and Eros, right?
That's fair enough. I've always said it. I've never been a player that, I used to be in nightlife. I used to produce erotic performance art parties, but I was never the guy that was like tracking the woman and gonna play and hunt her and close a deal and da, da, da. I've never played that. That has never been an authentic energy for me. Doesn't mean that I'm not primal and hungry and but for me, it has always been about cultivation of relationship. So let me give you an anecdote. So I used to be married, and during that time, we always knew that we weren't going to be the last people we were going to make love to. So we were exploring alternative relating, and so it led us into swinging, and swinging led me to become a erotic performance art producer of big, large-scale parties for open-minded people. And for me, it was never about like closing deals or like being anything like we need to fuck this person right now. It was always about cultivating relationships so that at any moment in our life, instead of having to go to that party, that thing, da, 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 it's like we have so many beautiful relationships in our life. These are friends of ours that we have trust with and we have experience with and whatnot, and we have intimacy with. And when the stars align, that portal could open, that there's a place for exploration for sexuality to happen, that would be the situation. So for me, it was never about like hunting, closing right now. It was always about creating gardens of love and Eros, where people could come, frolic, be themselves, build relationship, build intimacy, and when the stars align, connect. And so that's a bit the way my relationships are as well. It's like I have my life in different cities. I'm a nomad sometimes. I have intimacy. I have people that I have deep, long-term relationships with that have responsibilities associated to them, because that's what creates commitment. I'm loyal to those individuals. There's nobody that's going to come and rock that. So yeah, it's a whole other ecosystem. And ultimately, what I'm discovering is that we need more practice in this, or we need more, or I need to do more trainings specifically on this topic, because as I'm talking about, I'm like, I wish so many people would have more of this. And of course, you could find it on Love Without Limit on loveandarrows.com. And I just see how rich this topic is because, like I said, age of Aquarius, age of new love coming through. What is the new frequency of love that doesn't look like suffering, that looks like a generosity, that comes with its own benefits and gifts, which looks like abundance of love? And this all started with the question of, how has the aliveness changed in your life? Well, all of this. It's like there's just so much more life and relationships and conversations and consciousness and processing. And then some people say there must be so much fucking processing. And I'm like, there is, but what else is there to do in our lives? Like for me, if it's not cultivating deeper relationships and deeper roots that crisscross across our tribe and our field, then I don't know why I'm here. That's what I'm here to do.
Yeah, I see it as like it's transmuting, it's alchemizing, right? And I think there can be a shadow to that. I think some people can get caught in the chaos of that,
the excitement. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
sort of like the dopamine like
as well, yeah,
activation that comes in with constant processing, and some people use it as a way to keep the attention in spotlight. Like there are some ways that there can be a shadow to that, and sometimes it's taking more of your life force energy and you're not actually focusing on pleasure and love and connection, right? So I think there is some shadow in that, but ultimately, like you said, that's what we're here for, is to transmute and alchemize our deep wounding, our deep trauma from this previous age, so that we can be the transmuters, be the alchemists, to then open up the doors. And it requires processing. It's part of the job.
And when maturity comes, And so this is what, like, I feel like I'm 40, I just turned 45, whatever it is. And it's like, I feel like there's a new maturity coming.
Mm.
And so the maturity is about discernment. When you're a young, alive, and I'm still very alive, but it's like when you're new and hungry, there's a different energy. It's like, I need to get, especially when there's lack of love in the childhood, especially if there was like, not being seen, misunderstood, no access to intimacy. Like for me, one of the big things that I want to see in our culture is spaces of more touch, more love, and more shared intimacy without the attachment to like this big, deep, committed, like a more free expression of intimacy that doesn't have to look like, penetration or whatnot. But this is the energy that is going to help people come out of depression and right now desperation. This is where we are in our current cultural, mental, physical, collective consciousness place. We're in a desperation, and especially with men. Men are losing more and more attachment, connection to intimacy, and they are losing resolve, and they are turning their back, and suicides are going up. And a part of that is because there is a lack of free flowing intimacy, and there's people that are so ostracized and disconnected from regular social circles, let alone intimacy and touch, that is the true pandemic. We're in a time that we've been in the most connected ever, and we are the least connected ever. And yeah, so beyond like, polyamory and whatnot is greater intimate, but this is the piece. It's about getting into consciousness about it. Because if we would say, let's do more of that, let's say it was me and you, it's like, hey, let's put our bodies together, let's feel what it feels like if there's like interest, without being like, oh, this might mean that we're going to be lovers, and then that means that we're going to be possibly boyfriend and girlfriend. I can't do that because I have all these people. It's like, no, it's two human energetic cells co-regulating, bringing themselves together, feeling what this vibration feels like, saying thank you for the intimacy and the time of that shared moment of bliss. That is a momentary piece in your life, but that's where God is. It's in that moment to moment. So it doesn't have to look like anything more. And then from the other perspective, it's like maybe we choose with greater discernment who we choose to penetrate, or who do we choose to let into our body. Because I could be super open to a lot of yumminess and juiciness, but when we cross that threshold from a man's perspective, of a clear man's perspective, there is a responsibility to show up for the emotions of the woman's experience after that. And vice versa. Sure, yes, but you don't have a penis. I'm the one that put it in you. And that creates an emotional fucking domino effect that if I'm not ready to meet that, then I shouldn't be doing that, because that's the potential of us as well. When you're working with a sacred initiates and awakened conscious beings, that every connection has the potential to be like transformative sex, which completely changes your life. So yeah, more discernment about who we choose to run energy with. And then when we do that, we open to it and we allow it to feed our systems with what it was meant to bring: aliveness, ecstasy, clarity, with honoring. Yeah.
Yes. Fuck yeah. There's like two pieces that I really want to like tap into here. The first piece is what you're saying about having and creating more spaces for intimacy and touch, and like body to body and nervous system to nervous system. It's like so much of the world is starving since childhood, starving for that. And so, like you had said, if we go into open relating or any relating starving, we're not overflowing, we're not blessing, we're not resourced, we're focused on having our needs met, we're creating disappointment. Like it just perpetuates the trauma. So I'm such an advocate for this, for having places of yumminess and touch and intimacy and closeness. Like this is our deepest fertilization as human beings. Right. And
I know that you're an advocate. You're definitely an advocate for it. I love what you're doing in the field. I love the energy that you're holding. I love that you're constantly going deeper and deeper and unpacking greater and greater, and your spaces become even more and more potent. And yeah, so I just want to let you know that I see you as one of those people, as a priestess, serving the goddess, allowing the life force Shakti energy to move, to be shared, so that there is greater, like, we talk about mycelium and webs. It's like that's what it is.
Totally. That's what our nervous systems are, right? And so I love that. And so thank you for being such a visionary and pioneer to help really bring this medicine out into the world. And then the second piece that you said around discernment and like presence, right? I think that's so key, is like one's own devotion to embodiment and being resourced so that you can be present, so that you can have discernment, so that you can feel what's true in the moment. And that's why it all stems back to your original point of self-love, right? Giving yourself the resourcing, doing the meditation, doing whatever it is you need to do to stay in your river. And I think that's the key. That's really the key, because then when you're resourced and overflowing, you're not doing this with the world around.
I think ultimately that's the main path of the spiritual practice or the yoga. It's like, how do I get myself in the practice of being okay with myself? And then there's also the unpacking of like family of origin stuff, which is, like we say, the gift that keeps on giving. It's like all the limited beliefs that we picked up during the theta state of our brain development until like 8 years old. I think it's like 4 or 5 to 8 years old. There's a lot of like message pickups that we take in those moments and create belief systems about our whole life moving forward of what we picked up at 8 years old from our arguing parents or arguing siblings or whatnot. So it's like we have to get a bit more aware that there is a journey of introspection and personal development that is necessary to get into relationship with somebody else. So yeah, you could be in relationship, you could have relationships, they'll have drama, they'll have breakup, and they'll have more chance of survival or lasting, forget what the survival mean, of lasting, of longevity, when we are more aware of what our wounds are and where we go into like that automatic, like taking needy versus like being in relationship to be in love. And it's okay as well. I want to say to everybody, it's okay to be in that. We're gonna be in that. That's the point. That's what I mean. The family of origin, it's going to keep on playing that. But the commitment, if you truly want to be in relationship, is recognize where that is creating a lack of love or fear in the relationship, which is creating the breakdown. And so then we got to go back to that resource. So there's the basics, there's the personal development, and then there's, being pioneers and choosing. So the other thing I say about this limitless love, this love without limit, is that if you're not all in, it won't work. Like the methodology that I put out in Love Without Limit has this perspective of like, you have to fully commit to this idea that your experience of love is outward going. So that's your experience. So I could receive your love, Holly. Your experience of love could be outward glowing, and I could inspire you, and you could like put that attention onto me, but that is a blessing and not an expectation or an entitlement. Ever. That's the piece of the love without limit. So I'm in this love, and then I'm in this like service, this piece of like, I want to see your expansion. And if I'm not there, then I have to always come back to the place of what's misaligned in me right now. And that goes back to source. And for me, when I say go back to source, it's really knowing myself as the divine, knowing myself as everything, and recognizing that this person that I'm projecting my affections onto is not mine, was never mine, was never meant to fully be mine. I only got the privilege in this lifetime, in this embodiment, to live 8 months with them, to live 5 years with them, and to live in the joy of that. And unless there's more joy than toxicity, then you shouldn't be in that relationship. And ultimately, I go back to that's why I'm able to walk away from any relationship, because it's the understanding that this is the privilege, this is the gift. If I'm not being respected, or I'm not being respectful, and we're creating breakdowns, then to me, that's a clear sign that this relationship needs an exhale or a transformation or an evolution.
Mhm.
And I could do that because I know myself fully as God, and everything that is I'm living in this life is what I'm allowing to manifest. So
Mhm.
I would have never, in my wildest dreams, well, in my wildest dreams, absolutely, as a boy, look to my future and see the amount of love and intimacy and good vibrations that I've created in the world. And I'm like, yeah, I did that because I committed to that as the vision of the life that I want to do. So I am a creator. And
Yeah.
so are you, and so is everybody listening. But they have to hold to the truth, to the love, to the choice, to the commitment, to the discipline, to the discernment of being fully in love, which means being all in. And the all in is not like when fear arrives and say, oh, but I'm doing this because actually I love you. And you have to call out your bullshit and realize, no, I'm doing it because I'm in fear now. So what would love do? And how does it look to be supportive, contribute, or celebrate right now? And if I can do that, why can't I do that? And that might be a boundary or a value, or just that you're in a trauma response or a fear response that you can't meet it, and that has to be aware.
Right. And to not have shame around that piece,
At
right?
all.
Like
At all.
total self-compassion and compassion for the humanity of our tenderness in these pieces.
But here's the thing, as we practice it more, as we become more like, so it's the stalking that we teach at ISTA, right? It's like patience, the sweetness, patience, cunning, and ruthlessness. So as we become more ruthless, why we're doing that, we're shadow stalking, right? As we become more ruthless with stalking the fear, posing as love, justified by all the fucking best reasons, right? When we get more ruthless with that, we could shorten the cycle of leaking of energy, leaking of power, and come to the crux of it and say, okay, I'm not in love right now. And so as we practice this, it becomes faster and faster. And the return on investment is so much more and so much easier, of course, with the self-love. But it's like when we call out our fear, we're like, okay, this is fear. Okay, I understand that it's fear. Okay, why is it coming? Okay, okay, okay. What do I need? Oh, I need something.
Mm.
Now I could come into the situation and say, honey, what I need is this. And now you have to be in the situation of like, does this work for me? Does it not work for me? Does it cross a boundary? Is it part of my intentions of this relationship? Do I have no desire to do this? And now that's the real conversation. And this is not relationship, this is relating moment to moment, and God is only in the moment to moment.
Yes. Yes.
So don't talk to me about tomorrow. Let's
Yeah.
talk about right now,
Right
what's coming
now.
up.
That's all we got. That's all we got. Yeah.
And after 2 years from now, then it's like, oh, we have yesterday, and
Mhm.
now we're actually possibly visioning building a tomorrow together. But that is actually possible because we know who we are, and now we're crossing the threshold. It's like saying getting married. But
Mhm.
I'm saying, like, don't get fucking married and don't do all the storyline, because it's most of the time it's not fully coming from authentic love. The
Mhm.
people that are monogamous, that are looking for the one, you don't think their radars are filtered by the piece of lack and scarcity and need, and if I don't get, then I won't be a success. Like, there's a million and one stories. Look, I grew up in an Italian family, and I did weddings for over 10 years of my life. I've seen more people get married and divorced than anybody else, I
Yeah.
promise you. I
Yeah.
promise you. So that's what gives me the right to have this
Totally.
conversation.
Totally.
It's all experience.
Yeah.
No, but that's what I mean. It's like we're not. I remember when we got married was like, it wasn't from the necessarily conscious perspective. It came from the piece of, this is going to be the one that I'm going to build a life so that, and so on. Actually, it had beautiful intention. It had beautiful intention, and there was great openness of exploration. That's what put me on my path. But ultimately, the source is like, I need to find the one. I
Mhm.
need to find my better half. You complete me. Like, to me, this is all curse. These are all spells of the old paradigm and a very controlling religious trauma that we've experienced. And they keep us in the belief system that we are not full and complete upon ourselves. And so, first of all, everybody that wants to be a shaman, first of all, you have to be full and complete upon yourself, which is you have to constantly being on the spiral path and doing these rites of passage of consistently doing your personal work. And you're only so much to service to our community as current as you are with your own bullshit.
Totally. And it's like that paradigm, the previous paradigm is like super codependent as well. It's like this feeling of like, if I don't meet this other person, then I'm standing on one leg. I'm hobbling basically through life, right? As opposed to dancing wildly through life and having people that I dance with along the way.
Yeah, I'm just feeling into like the big dichotomy between like where we come from, like the last 2,000 years, and literally where the threshold that we are crossing over as humanity into this new space, and like the vast difference. And the problem is that it's got to be done. Yeah, I'm just seeing the vastness and the challenge that we have as a human race to slowly release and open our hearts and our minds and our consciousness and our transcendence a bit more to experience more of life. And then how do we, which is the main question, which is always the unknown, which is the mystery, how does that play out in this new reality that is emerging, this new world that we're living in? And have no doubt it's coming. Every president said there's going to be a new world order. The Great Reset came, the pandemic came, and we're not going back to the old life. And so, even electronic vehicles, this new way that they want us to live in this more collective way. You'll own nothing and be happy. Say what?
Artificial intelligence.
All of it. It's all about this new place that we are going into be serving a greater center. But in the meantime, we're having like this schizophrenic behavior of I am so identified in this and see me in all of this. And at the same time, it's like, yeah, but we need to be more in this collective thing. Yes, this is why you need to include me into collective. And then it's like, can we release all the identity as well to serve a collective that is less in the identity politics? And we said we may or may not touch on this. Here I am, I'm touching on it. And to me, the identity politics is it's a call for love. It's a call for love and saying like, see me, accept me, and whatnot. And I'm at the place that, yeah, I think we see, and we are in a very tolerant culture, especially in the United States. If we look at, 30 years back, 50 years back, 60 years back, we are tolerant of all things. But it's this pushing it in the face of saying, see me, see me, see me, which is communicating the wound of the inner child, of the individual that needs to be seen in their differenceness. This is the big wound. And so I'm not saying it to point fingers and to say, whatever, but it's like, can we come to consciousness that we all need to release? One side needs to release their need to control fucking female bodies. It makes no freaking sense. And the other side needs to release control of language and identity politics. There's so much of that. But nobody could do it as long as you're fighting for your pole to be seen, because you're still living in your old freaking paradigm, which is about suffering and pain. And some of us, the trailblazers, are looking towards the love and allowing the acceptance without changing, by allowing sovereignty of everybody's expression, without changing other people's belief systems because you feel that there's a more righteous way. No, America is about allowing everybody their individual voice while feeding a greater ideal. And this is what we're transitioning into. Be you, be the identity you are without anybody needing to validate you. Yeah. That's man, woman, any fucking of the social justice pieces. I don't care. I don't want to be validated anymore. That's the piece. Why I'm free and successful in my love, in my relationships with my beloveds, is because I don't need to be validated by them anymore. When I look to validation, it's this neediness, see me, I am out of love. But when I don't need to be validated and I'm the king and I'm just serving the love and this doesn't work for me, I could walk away. That is more the expression of love. That's more harmony. Walking away is an expression of love. Releasing relationship of somebody that you love, that you've got in a whirlwind about, that you can come and you want to control and whatnot. Releasing them is love. So we need to stop looking at love as this, I need to obtain, I need to hold, and it doesn't change. And if it changes and you have any attraction to anybody else, whatever, it's a fucking sin. And I think that that is like Disneyland, immature, old school, outdated, everything that people are attacking of the traditionalists. It's the same thing. So it's like people are holding a selective outrage. I hold on to this thing, but this thing needs to change. But that, and everybody has their different reason of that. So release the selective outrage and accept yourself for who you are, and share love by being in acceptance and non-judgment and tolerance. And I think we need more of that.
It's so yummy, everything you're saying, Frank. And like, as you're saying this, the vision that I get when we talk about the gardening is just like these abundant apple trees that are just blooming and feeding. And it's not like, why
stop it?
Yeah, like it's not saying like, why isn't that bird eating my apple? And like, it isn't saying to the pear tree, like, why aren't you an apple tree? Like, it just is, and it's in such abundance and it's in such harvest. And this is what I feel coming through, is when we talk about these new relationship styles and limitless love and feeding each other and being the web. It's like becoming this abundant harvest garden together.
Absolutely. And so the Mayan culture, the ancient Mayan culture, they used to have a saying. It was in Lakesh alakim. And what it means is, I am another you and you are another me. So it doesn't matter, like that what gave the focus of, for there to be wellness, that everybody must be well. Because if we're not all well, then I am feeling the suffering. And this is what part of what keeps me up at night, or like keeps my body out of ease, is the recognition that from that truth, I am another you, you are another me, and there's this wellness piece. It's like there is so much in the justice and separation of class and whatnot that, we could all spend this time with our privilege and fucking doing podcasts and talking, about self-actualization. But in this reality, in this time and place, there's such a difference that, it's to a certain point, it's hypocritical and superficial. But the reason of why I do it and why I agree and why I bring my passion is because we can only affect our personal vibratory essence, and then how we butterfly effect out into the world. So me and you having this conversation and using our privilege to have this conversation touches each other, and you touch other people, and you're now activated with this energy, this bigger pictures, this collective consciousness picture that you, through your own third eye, can dream into and visualize. And as we all do that through the feeling sensation place and then the imagining, then we could elevate the consciousness. But I don't see how we do it successfully in the current way, where there's such a disparity, unless there is a great divide, a truly energetic separation, where there's a timeline shift, where you move into the timeline that is best resonant with your vibration, and you just start to meet the world differently. And that is often where I find that there is big rupture or chaos in your lives. You're like, what was white yesterday is black today, and what's black is white. Why? Because there's like been a schism and we've jumped timelines.
It's disorienting, especially if you can't decide. You got one foot in one timeline and one foot in the other timeline, and it's like an earthquake is happening beneath you, right?
That's the worst. That's the worst.
Doing shamanic splits on the timelines. Yeah, well, I stand with you, Frank. I stand for love without limits. I stand for us all creating a mycelium web of nervous system co-regulation and love and abundant harvest. Right there with you, feeding our gardens with love and Eros, and letting the fairies come and play.
Indeed, indeed. And in the meantime, like literally, what I would leave people with, it's like creating joy in your life. Like, I think that to me, that is the most important. And that's not to say to create joy is not difficult and that we have to go through trials and heroes' journeys. But when our source or our North Star is my commitment to my life is creating joy for myself, because from that joy, my love will be activated. And from that love, I can bless others. And
Mhm.
until we're fed with that personal joy, whatever that looks like, it's the small things, it's the moments, it's the relationships, it's the relationships, it's the relationships. So let's stop blocking our beloveds or our loves from having friendships and relationships and intimacy with other people, because that will feed them and that will give them more access to greater love to bless you and your families. And that's the vision I have. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's right, it's wrong. It comes from my own personal experience. It came from the breakdowns, the breakthroughs, the opportunities,
Mhm.
and this is what I'm imparting into the world. So if it resonates, yeah, come and follow. And if not, I totally get it. And just follow your path, because you're on it. One way or another, it's going to show up and you're going to have to face one thing or another. I'm going to have to face one thing or another, one way or another. So I'm choosing love and feeding joy first.
Yes. Fuck yeah. Too. I'm joining you on this one too. And I'm like,
Yes.
more dancing. I'd like to add to
I feel
that.
that, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you weaving into some adventures that we're going to go on in the next few months together. And I appreciate, yeah, your service, and not only to what we're doing together, but the service to what you're doing in the field and your communities, and with this podcast and with your heart. I feel it.
Thank you. Mm. Thank you so much, Frank, for this powerful, I feel like I'm buzzing right now. Thank you so much for this powerful transmission. And where can we find you? Where's your garden? Where can we find you?
My online virtual garden is the best way to plug in, is Mondeose.com. So you'll have my name somewhere. That is like a portal into everything I do. It might need updating, but my schedule feels pretty up to date. You could find out what trainings I'm offering, when and where there, as well as loveanderos.com, which is where I have a small catalog of courses that I'm slowly feeding that website, and you pay per course. And so there's Love Without Limit, which is my flagship course, which puts all these pieces. It's 5 hours done at your own pace. And then I have two other 1 hour courses designed more for um, personal development, including the emotional release course. It's called Express and Release. So it gives you tools of emotional release. And then I have shadow stalking and or the shamanic healing path. So there's about 3, 4 courses, if not more, on that by the time you reach it.
Great. Thank you so much for all the work and the trailblazing and the visionary and going into the uncharted territories with the machete and paving new paths for all of us to be inspired by and learn from. Really appreciate you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor and a privilege, as we know.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in today to the Shamanic Tantra podcast, and we will see you soon.